You're listening to the official podcast of Bloodstock Open Air Festival. Bloodstock Radio.
Yes, hello, good evening and welcome to Bloodstock Radio, the official podcast of the Bloodstock Open Air Festival. My name is Squatter and this is podcast number 70, and we kicked off the show there with a new track from Death Angel. That's called The Pack, and they will of course be joining us at Bloodstock 2019, as will the first of our Metal to the Masses winners, Genova, as our 2019 Metal to the Masses Grand Finals tour kicked off last weekend in Coventry. So tonight's show is a Metal to the Masses special, and as you know, we always try to interview every winning Metal to the Masses band and and play some of their music for you. So we'll be doing that later on, and we'll also be catching up with Bloodstock's Simon Hall as he sets out on the biggest Metal to the Masses Grand Finals tour we've ever had. So let's kick things off with this week's Metal to the Masses Roundup.
Metal to the Masses Update.
This is Chris from the CPR show on Hailsham FM with your latest Brighton Metal to the Masses update. Heat 3 saw Gaia progress to the final on June the 30th, joining Kinzoku and Tales of Autumn there. Competing at the Green Door store this Sunday for the chance to join them are industrial metalers The Dark, atmospheric death metal band Stormcast and Black and Thrasher's Woe Betide. Guest headline act are Hertfordshire's Earthbound. Doors open at 7pm, it's free entry. See you there.
Good afternoon, good evening, good metal. I'm Coop from the Spoken Metal Show with an update on Metal to the Masses 2019 Merseyside Heat 2. Again, 3 bands looking to go forward to the final. Six Circle, just an astonishingly heavy slab of modern metal. Riptide Messiah with a huge all-encompassing sound. And Midnight Prophecy with a new wave of British heavy metal take on soaring vocals. And in the end, Midnight Prophecy take the win with one of the tightest and complete sets so far, which just left Sertraline to close the show as guest headliners, showing why they won in 2018 and just how much they've evolved into a ferocious technical monster with songs to match. We're looking forward to Heat 3. I'll see you at the show.
Jake from Sheffield Metal to the Masses here. After our last semi-final, we must say congrats to Delta Note for getting through to the finale. This Saturday, the 4th of May, is Sheffield's grand finale. Defamation of Man, Dominion of Ashes, Isle, Against the Grain and Delta Note, who will all be joined by Sheffield 2018 winners Ionia. Mulberry, £5 as always, we'll see you there.
Hello again, it's Tom from Resin Events here with your Leicester Metal to the Masses update. Sorry for the lack of updates recently, but we have been quite busy. We had our 5th and final qualifying heat on April 21st, with Omen Machine and Diceratops going through to the quarter-finals. A mere 3 days later, we found ourselves at our first quarter-final, with Gallows High and 28 Double progressing through to the semi-finals. And 4 days after that, we found ourselves at our second quarter-final, with By Design and Omen Machine going through to the semi-finals. The last of our quarter-finals will be held on May 1st at Firebug with Dawn of Anubis, Graves, Her Burden and Diceratops. Our semi-finals will take place from May 10th to May 11th. On May 10th we will have previous Metal to the Masses winners Oracle from Northern Ireland, and on May 11th we will have Cadence Noir and Ashbourne, both previous Metal to the Masses winners, as our guest headliners. Our grand final will be held from May 24th to May 26th. Yes, our grand final is going to take 3 days. The 24th, that being the Friday, will be held at Firebug. There will be 4 guest bands at that, and it'll be sort of a warm-up for the whole weekend. Saturday will be held at Dryden Street. This will be the actual Metal to the Masses final itself. On this day you will have the 5 Metal to the Masses finalists performing, as well as guest bands Talk, Seven Hells, Eradicator, The Crawling and Divine Chaos. And the final day, which is Sunday, May 26th, will be held at Firebug. On this day you will have performances from Witch Tripper, Foul Body Autopsy, Sky Pilot, Twisted Illusion and Democratus, as well as loads more. For more information, visit the Leicester Metal to the Masses Facebook page.
Hi, this is Greg from Metal in the Cabin for Bloodstock Radio. On Saturday we had the final of Coventry Metal to the Masses at the Empire, and out of 20 local bands, just 4 were left. And although Blackwater Fiend, Callous Hands and Desolation played great sets, at the end of the night the mighty Genova were awarded the coveted spot on the New Blood stage. Brutal riffs, tight musicianship and a captivating stage show, the new lineup with former vocalist Tony on drums and new frontman Jamie owning the stage, it was a tough call but a well-deserved win for the band. To see just how high the bar has been set by Genova, visit the Metal in the Cabin Facebook page to watch their entire winning set, plus tons of other videos from this year's Metal to the Masses Coventry. Now, not only were we treated to 4 great unsigned bands, last year's Metal to the Masses Coventry winners Pelugian treated us to a smashing set, with Andy, Brandon and John reminding us why everybody loves the threesome. Headlining the night were thrash legend Zentrix, who played an hour of pure unadulterated thrash, leaving most of us with very sore necks the next morning. Now, this is the last update for Metal to the Masses Coventry, but certainly not the last you'll hear from the Coventry metal scene, and Genova will show you that at Bloodstock later this year. All that's left for me to say is good luck to the Glasgow and Sheffield finals this weekend, and in the meantime, my friends, stay metal.
And now on Bloodstock Radio. A Bloodstock Metal to the Masses tour update.
Okay, next up on Bloodstock Radio, we have got the first of our Bloodstock Metal to the Masses 2019 winners. Up in Coventry last weekend, the winners were Genova. How are we doing, guys?
Hey, not bad, mate. How are you doing?
Awesome.
So, you guys won at the Empire in Coventry on Saturday night. So, is it starting to sink in yet? Are we all still a little bit dazed? How are we feeling?
Yeah, it feels unreal, really. It's taking a while to settle in.
I keep looking at that flyer and all the main acts that are playing, and just like my mind is just blown that we're going to be playing the same event as all these guys, like Anthrax. It's amazing.
How many of you? I know that one of you's been to Bloodstock before, because one of you's played at Bloodstock before, but we'll talk about that in a little while. So Scott, have you been before?
No, I haven't. I've really wanted to this whole time. It just hasn't worked out.
Yeah. Okay, how about you, John, Tony?
No, I've never been myself. I've always wanted to, but I always had the kids and everything. But no, now things are working out now.
And how about you, Tony?
No, I've never been. I was planning on going and just didn't think it'd be as a performer.
I actually like it when people have their first Bloodstock experience as a performing band as well, because it's obviously different. You know, depending on what day you're playing and things like that, you obviously get to take in the rest of the atmosphere as well. But you get that sort of, you're one of the rock stars. And as I say, you guys are going to be playing on the same bill as Scorpions and Sabaton and all these amazingly huge bands. And it looks pretty good on your CV, I can tell you.
Yeah.
So I know you guys got to the final last year in Coventry, didn't you?
Yeah, we've. I think it's been 4 years running now that we've hit the finals. So so like to win it this year, it's just like yes.
Well, sometimes you have to do that, I think. I mean, we have had bands that, I think Raised by Owls, I think Metal to the Masses was actually their first gig as a band. They got knocked out in the first heat and got back in as a wild card and ended up winning it. So some bands go like that, and then we had a band called Kayla Cura a couple of years ago, and they were like 7 times that they'd been in it. And so sometimes it just takes that time to get there.
I suppose because it took us 4 years, it gave us all that time to get better at what we do and improve enough to the stage that we've reached where we are.
Definitely. That's the best thing about the Metal to the Masses process. It really makes you as a band. You tighten every aspect up in the shortest amount of time possible.
Yeah, a lot of people see it, or see the competition element of it, and they just, they don't really go in for that and that. But the benefits that I see to bands, and obviously, I'm going to big it up, but I was a fan even before I got involved in Bloodstock, and, the bands that I was speaking to when I used to just be on a radio station and just interviewing bands in general, was that it does do that. It does make you up your game, but you also get that networking and that sort of camaraderie and the support of each other as well, don't you?
Yeah, it's like it just gives you that drive, just something to work for, and it's just knowing what's at the end of it, and it just gives you that extra kick up the arse just to get in there and pull all the stops out and make yourself better at what you do, So
I think this year compared to the last 3 years before this one, personally, I think it seems that we, even before the final, I think there was a much better atmosphere between the bands, because it seemed like we had some really good competition from the start. It was like a lot of mutual respect, and everybody was really just cool. And that's what it's all about, right? It was really awesome. And then obviously for us, it ended really well. But I really want to work with some of these other bands because they're awesome, and I'd love to share the stage with them.
Speaking of stages, the stage at the Empire at Coventry there looked like a hell of a venue. I've not been there myself before. What's that like as a venue?
Incredible. Yeah, that's amazing. Yeah. When we walked in, just seeing that stage, it's just like, oh, here we go. Yes. Yeah, just to get up on there and just to have all that room, just to to move around and to be able to just do what you want on there without being pigeonholed into a corner, sort of thing. It was a good feeling.
Very good.
Yeah, that stage definitely made that definitely made the final. All that extra room, like you said, just to move around, bigger space for the crowd. It's perfect for it.
I'd be a little worried that we'd have all this room and be like, okay, what do we do with it? But
we used it.
But the thing is, you've got to. I mean, I saw it a little bit, to be honest, at Leicester over the last couple of years, because they've had their final at the Montfort Hall for the last couple of years, and that's an enormous stage. And sometimes bands can get a little bit lost on that, especially if you're used to playing smaller venues where you're all really sort of tight together in that lot. So a lot of bands don't know what to do with that extra space, and it is a different change of mindset, isn't it?
Everything has to be bigger and better.
That was one of the main things we were working on as well, because we've been, been playing on that small stage, and we knew that the final was at the Empire. We're like, right, we've got to work on, the actual movement of what we're going to do on the stage. So, practices, we were walking around all over the place and, getting up on things and stuff, and just really getting into it, so we knew that we could do it on the big stage, and we knew what we were going to be doing, I
think that's what you've got to do. Movement, especially, is definitely something that I think the judges look for.
It's got to be interesting.
Especially when you're in the final, the judges are literally looking for which band can I literally pick up and put them down on the new blood with that performance that they just done, and they're going to entertain a festival crowd. That's what it needs to be. So obviously you've got to make the best use of what you've got, and I'm glad that you guys did.
Probably the most fun show of my entire life.
Yeah. So we'll talk a little bit about the switch around then. So obviously, Tony, for you, it's you've got a slightly different view of the stage from this year, because I believe you've moved from being the singer to being the drummer. Is that right?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. I used to do what Jamie did, and I moved to the drums. Yeah, I had a different view, and it was the first time I'd ever actually been in Metal to the Masses as a drummer. In fact, I don't think a lot of people even knew I could play this sort of stuff. But it was a lot of practice, and it was a lot of fun. I actually enjoyed being the drummer. And the ironic thing about us winning this year is the fact that the first heat we did was our debut show with the new lineup. So to go from the first heat being the first show with the new lineup to winning within the space of 6 weeks or whatever it was is absolutely amazing.
Yeah, that is, absolutely. So, yeah, well done with that. We got some really great updates from Greg from Metal in the Cabin, and it sounded like it was a really well-fought, fiercely contested competition, but also really well attended, yeah?
Yeah, very well.
Definitely.
Yeah, I think our semifinal was almost sold out. I mean, that place was really packed, and that was awesome. I remember our first year we played, I think it was the Roadhouse in Birmingham. The first heat was a ghost town. It was a bigger venue, and it was almost nobody in there. And the semifinal was pretty good, and then the final sold out. But this year, almost selling out the semi was nuts. So, and that's one of the things. I'm not a huge fan of having to compete with other bands. I do this for fun. I think why all of us do it. We want to have fun. The fact that these shows are so good, the bands are so good, it's so fun to just watch the other guys play. And, everybody busts their ass to bring people to these shows. I mean, that makes it worth it. So having that, really slammed semi was a huge boost.
Yeah. Coming back to you there, Scott, what's the equivalent? Have you got the equivalent of this in America at all, or festivals in general? Do they have stuff like this?
From my experience, it's really more festivals with all signed bands, or small one all-dayers with local bands. But in order to get local bands onto the stage with touring signed bands, it's really just a who kind of thing. As I played for years in Georgia and South Carolina and Florida, and probably 2 or 3 years of getting on the good graces of the promoters to even get a good support slot. And to be able to do a festival like this, there's no equivalent. I mean, not at all. I mean, we had a lot of tours where it's an all day thing, and it'll be 15 really good bands or 20 bands even, but local bands couldn't even touch that. So to have the opportunity to get close to 30 underground unsigned bands or more from the UK and a couple other countries on this bill, it's incredible, and there's absolutely nothing like it in the States.
Okay, that's what we thought, because there's nowhere here that does it either in the UK, really. So coming back to you for a minute then, Jamie. So obviously new vocalist in this band, but you got there in 2016 with Black Ink Sun, and I remember I was at that final in Northampton. I remember that.
Yes, you were.
I remember Lee nearly crying like a baby because I was the first one when it was announced. He was the first person that I saw, and he was in bits. So Black Ink Sun, sadly now no more. I was actually at your last gig as well, wasn't I, in Bedford?
Yeah, you were.
I was, bloody hell. Sound like a stalker now.
Oh, you were there from the start, weren't you?
I was indeed. So obviously you're going to be helping the guys out. I do remember Black Ink Sun were very notable in that, you had flags, you had flyers you were giving out to people telling you when your appearance was on the New Blood and that sort of thing. So I'm guessing you're going to be passing that experience. And
in a way, old secrets. But yeah, no, there will be all of that and more. We learned so much with that first experience. We learned so much with that. So definitely know what to go back and do.
Yeah, and obviously for the actual performance side of things, what's your memories of that? Because again, I remember I went backstage before you. Oh God, I'm remembering all these things now. Before you went on the New Blood, it was the 10:30 slot, wasn't it? It was the first thing in the morning.
Yeah.
And I went back to see you guys before you went on, and then watched a bit of your set before I went to watch Cambion on the main stage, I think. So yeah. So what are your memories of it?
It's mind blowing still to even put my mind back to that. Nothing's topped that so far.
That's good to know. Well, obviously these guys here are all Bloodstock virgins. You're going to be having to show them round and show them where everything is and see how that goes. So
that's what I'm really looking forward to this time. That's the thing I'm looking forward to the most, taking these guys and them experiencing it. I know what we're in for, but they have it all to come.
Cool. Well, we look forward to seeing you there, guys. So the idea of doing this is obviously to get you guys out there. So if you just give a brief overview of, what sort of music you play in that lot. Obviously, we'll be listening to one of your songs in a minute. One of you can introduce that for us. But if you can just sort of give a brief overview. I know bands don't like to pigeonhole themselves, but similar sort of bigger bands that are your influences and that you might sound like a little bit.
Definitely deathcore / death metal sort of stuff.
Well, like new school and old school death metal mixed with modern deathcore.
Okay, that sounds pretty clear cut. That sounds good. Cool. Okay, well, cheers for talking to us, and congratulations on getting to Bloodstock. So, we're going to play your song Scapegoat. So if one of you can introduce that for us, and we'll see you at Bloodstock in August.
This is Scapegoat. Enjoy.
Okay, so next up as part of our Metal to the Masses special, we are talking to, I'm going to call you the Supremo, Simon. How does that sound? Metal to the Masses Supremo, Mr. Simon Hall.
Terrible. How does it sound? Dreadful. I'm not a Supremo of anything. Yeah, how you doing? All right?
I'm good, thanks. The word Supremo to me, I think I always associate with Eric Morley and Miss World, so you can go with that.
I'm happy to be Miss World. It's not a problem. Supremo. No, I'd sort of go with Arching Overlord. Frankly.
Okay, that's fine.
Yeah.
Then, yeah. Okay.
Yeah, all right.
Marvelous. Okay, yeah. So obviously we've just started. We had the final in Coventry last weekend at the Empire. So I've seen the little clips and that lot. But from your point of view, how did it go?
Great way to start, and to be quite honest, it set the bar really high. I'm a Coventrian, so it's nice to kick off in your hometown. And to be quite honest, it was above and beyond what it's been in previous years. It really was. It was in a new venue for the final, in a place called the Empire, which has been going for 2 or 3 years now. But it's like an 800 capacity room. However, it's set out that sort of 250. I think it was about 250 that were in there for the final. It fills out the bottom half of the room nicely, and the atmosphere was great. And the bands this year were absolutely belting. I would say it's probably the strongest Coventry final we've had to date, because all the bands were sort of there or thereabouts. They were all vying for it, but Genova did extremely well and sort of pipped them all to the post. It was a great night, great start.
Yeah, we spoke to Genova earlier on, and obviously they're still a little bit dazed about it all, but they also said similar about how it did seem to be. They said right the way through, because obviously they've taken part in the Coventry Metal to the Masses before, but they said it does seem to have elevated itself this year, both in competition and in terms of the obviously with the venue being somewhere else other than the Arches, which is a great venue in itself, but when you've got that extra space on the stage that they were talking about and things like that.
Exactly. I think one of the sort of Genova, again, one of those success stories that whereby I've had it over previous years with several bands, but they've been involved in the initiative in previous years and sort of took advice and sort of gone back and sort of honed their material, if you like, and honed their live show and sort of come back. And it was kind of weird because the original singer is now the drummer, and they've got this new singer in, but it just kind of fitted so much better, and it was a better delivery of show, and it was a lot more polished. And they good lads, absolutely, good luck to them.
And obviously we had the quality of headliners as well. I mean, it wasn't that long ago really that we were sort of trying to, most of the finals were happy if they got a previous winner, but now like Coventry had a previous winner and a headline band like Zentrix as well, and we've got several others throughout the rest of them as well, where you look at some of the headliners they've got coming up, and a lot of the promoters do seem to be up in their game in that respect, don't they?
It's kind of working because it's for the finals you're getting a good footfall anyway with regards to people that are there to support the competing bands, if you like, but you're also getting promoters like where do we look? We look at places like Wolverhampton, where they've got Evil Scarecrow and Ashen Crown. You look to Northampton, where they've got Vader, for Christ's sake, and even Poland, who've got Propane. They're looking at putting these headliners in to make it a sort of all-encompassing metal night. So you've got not only your competing bands, but you've got name headliners as well, and it's a great move. It's a great move because it's Saturday alone was a prime example that a lot of these kids were in the crowd just watching Zentrix and going, that's how it's done, right there. That is how it's done, and it's great. I mean, it's bands supporting bands as well, and that's primarily what we've been looking for from day one. And the atmospheres are growing. There's a lot less negativity with the whole sort of initiative now, and it's rolling along pretty well.
Yeah, absolutely, and it does seem that we're obviously our sponsors are coming on board. We got a lot of balloons last year, which was always.
You got balloons again this year, only because I didn't get rid of all the balloons last year.
Yeah, I'm not surprised, mate. They nearly bloody killed us. But we've also got we had a little video at the end of the clip that came up pretty quickly as well. Is that the intention to have that throughout the tour, or is it just as and when we can? Or
I've set myself a target that literally after every show I do, and it now materialises that every show Rob does, I'm going to be doing a video literally within 24 hours, literally just as a synopsis video, just showing the punters that weren't there that look, A, there's a crowd, B, there was however many competing bands, headliners, and generally just showing the atmosphere of the Metal to the Masses, and hopefully it's going to generate more and more interest as we go along. But yeah, it is going to be fun, especially on the when I'm doing like 3 shows over the weekend. I intend to literally, hot foot it back to the Premier Inn, as it were, and start editing straight after the show, which I think it's working well. So far the Coventry one, it looked all right, didn't it?
Yeah, it did. It looked very good indeed. And I say it's part of that when you look at it to I'd say maybe like 2 or 3 yeyears ago, when I first started doing the Bloodstock Radio, that sort of tied in with it. Pilco came on with doing the graphics and getting the branding behind it, and Emp and Hobgoblin seemed to sort of, become a bit more visible in terms of the actual events rather than just actually at the festival. So all those sort of 3 things, and obviously it's not by mistake, it's all sort of planned-ish. Supremo and all that. And then of course when you're at the festival last year, I'm standing I can't remember who I was watching, but I'm standing in the pit watching it, and someone in the crowd literally tapped me and went, "You're on the screen now, mate." And I'm like, "What?" And literally turned around, and obviously all the clips that we did at the end of the thing with all the balloons and everything going off last year were all shown on the big screen at the thing. Obviously my head looked exactly the same size on the big screen as it does normally.
It was a little bigger than the main screen, to be honest. I couldn't get it all in. But hey, look, I think that's the whole sort of the whole thing about this Metal to the Masses is it's all encompassing. It's not just about the bands, it's not just about the venues, it's not just about the fans, it's about the whole thing, the whole sort of experience, the whole networking, that whole hashtag Metal family. It's important. We're seeing reports coming out now that sort of metal is on the rise again. I don't see that. It's been there sort of 24/7 as far as I can see. But you're also getting reports about the venues struggling. In regards of rent hikes, etc., etc. So it's all about sort of supporting that underground scene, not just at a band level, but at a sort of shouting from the rooftops about the venues, shouting from the rooftops about the camaraderie between fans, and all of that I think is vitally important. And splashing that up on the main screen and congratulating the winning bands as well. I thought it worked really well last year. And then when you're seeing bands sort of throwing horns up in the air as soon as their name is sort of splashed all over the main screen, then it's a great look. And I think we'll be doing that again this year, without a doubt.
Absolutely, and also at the meet and greet that we had recently in Derby as well. Metal to the Masses was mentioned very strongly in that, wasn't we? We had a lot of people that said that they visited the New Blood tent a lot, and we had a few good suggestions for ideas for going even bigger.
That meet and greet, as terrifying as it was at first, that was really good, because you have an idea how it's working and if it is working, but then when you actually get when I asked the question, how many people went into the New Blood stage and checked out bands, and virtually everybody put their hand up and said, at least a dozen times we pop in there and sort of check out who's playing. That for me is there is no doubt that the main stage bands and your headliners are the big ticket bands, and we really we wouldn't be anywhere without that. However, for me, sort of the Jägermeister and the New Blood stage are the beating heart of the festival, because they are. It sounds as cheesy as it possibly could, but at the end of the day, the New Blood bands of today are the headliners of tomorrow. And it is as simple as that. So, the more we nurture these bands, the more that we sort of give them as much kudos and as much guidance as possible, then, that there is a hope that there's going to be another great British headline act come out of it. Or more to the point, bands that sort of have longevity and continue and make a career out of it. That is as important as a headliner slot,
So that's 1 down, 30 to go. So sounds great when you say it like that, doesn't it?
Yeah, I know, right?
So we're going right the way through till to July the 13th in Somerset. So obviously yourself and Rob and Lisa, and I believe Sam's doing Poland this year as well. Sam Kelly-Wallace.
That's another great thing. We talk about sort of Hobgoblin, and they are fantastic supporters of the Metal to the Masses, as are EMP. And Sam works for EMP anyway, and he's going out to Poland. He's been flown out to Poland and sort of looked after in full Polish fashion. So he's going to love every minute of that. And he's going out there to judge the Polish final, which, and Sam's a great guy and obviously a great musician in his own right as well. So, EMP, Hobgoblin, you've got to give him full kudos, definitely.
Yeah, absolutely, and obviously Sam's got his own Bloodstock heritage as well. I know that he's judged a lot of the Metal to the Masses for Mick down in London, and he's played with Valenfire and things like that. So, you know, it's great to see other people getting involved in it as well, because that night you're going to be over in Norway, and you're going to be in the capital this year in Oslo.
Really excited about this, yeah. For the last, I think it's about 6 years now, we've been in Stavanger in Norway, which is to the northeast, southwest. It's to the west. It's on the west coast of Norway, and it's been brilliant. But I have always hankered and wanted to get into the capital, because there is a strength in depth. I was just reading through the other day on some of the bands that they've got in there, and it's nuts. It's absolutely nuts. Norway is great, full stop. You know, it's got the right sort of mindset, and believe it or not, it's not all full of black metal bands. There's 2 or 3 that have come through over the past 6 years, but there's a real strength in depth across the board with all genres of metal over there, and it's expensive for a beer, but it's a bloody good time out, you know.
Yeah, indeed. And also looking down the list as well, we've got a couple of regions coming back in again. We've got Essex and Leeds, which I think you're doing both of them, going up to Dirty Leeds as well. So it's great to see, and Cheltenham as well is another one that stands out as well, really. So it's great that we're sort of mixing it around a bit every year as well. And we do have that sort of need sometimes for just a year just out to get things to replenish, and then you come back in again, and it works really well, that.
Definitely. I mean, one of the regions we look at in regards to that this year is Brighton. Brighton's back on board. Mark took a year out because he said, and rightly so, the fact is we don't want to sort of, you know, deplete the gene pool of bands in that certain region. Let's give them a year or so to breathe, to sort of re-establish themselves and sort of reignite themselves. And then, you know, Mark's Brighton events just sort of filled up with bands in a heartbeat this year. So it's a good idea to sort of freshen it up. And, you know, next year I've already got new regions in mind that have contacted me, and there will be a couple that I'm sort of pulling back from. So, yeah, it's all about that longevity, you know. Look, what are we, 10 years into this now?
Yeah.
Did I think this was going to last 10 years? No, probably not. Probably not. I thought it was going to sort of fall by the wayside. But the fact is, it's quite simplistic by its design. It's the whole premise is to just be honest. You know, just be honest with the promoters, be honest with the bands. You know, have an honest sort of, you know, scoring judge system, etc., and have the finals judged by a representative of Bloodstock Open Air. That way, there's no sort of, you know, ifs, buts, or maybes. It's literally down to the band on the night, how they performed, you know, how they put themselves over, how it worked in relation to the genre of the music, musicality, etc. All these little facets just to work out, you know, who'd got it on the night. But it doesn't just finish there, though. I mean, you know yourself. There's been nights where I've just not been able to choose between 2 or 3 bands, and then I'd sort of 3 or 4 weeks later, after the final showcase at any given region, I sort of get back to the runners up and say, look, I've got a slot on the Jaeger stage, or I've got an additional slot on New Bloods. Let's get you in there anyway, because it's to the betterment of the festival, it's to the betterment of the bands, and it's sort of, you know, I think it's the right thing to do. I mean, if I carry on like this, so it's going to be a 6-day festival.
Yeah,
you know, it's never easy, but I think that's a good thing. I would say strength and depth wise now. The musicality of these you know, kind of churlish calling them breaking bands, because, you know, they're so that some of them now, when I first started, you'd find the average band in the Metal to the Masses had been going 6 months to a year. Now, because it's so well trusted, there's so many bands that I'm seeing coming into the event that are like 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 years down the line, which means they've got their own fan base and they're sort of established in their own right, but as importantly, they're honing their craft, you know?
Yeah.
And that means that the offering that they're putting up there is above and beyond what it's been in the past. And it's as I say, it's great for the festival, and it's great for the metal scene in general in the UK and abroad. So more power to them.
Yeah, and that's sort of self-generating as well, because if you do get a band like that that's got a bit more sort of experience, the other bands won't necessarily be daunted by that. They'll learn from them, and they'll watch them, and they'll up their game, and it brings the best out in everybody then, doesn't it?
Yeah, exactly. It leaves the egos at the door as well.
Yeah,
which I'm finding that more and more now. You know, back in the day, as I say, when it first started out, sort of egos and sort of bruised egos were a big thing, but it really isn't an issue so much anymore. It's less and less an issue. You know, people are going, okay, well, look, you know, we didn't do it this time. I mean, you know, Genova, prime example. They didn't do it last year. They were great, but they weren't good enough to proceed through. But now, absolutely smashed it. You know, we've had it with so many bands over the years that are willing to take that advice, willing to sort of take the advice on board. I mean, not all the advice is going to stick. Not all the advice is right in some cases. You know, I may suggest that they sort of go down the road of sort of trying out more vocal harmonies or more guitar over here or whatever, and that might not be the key. But it's something for them to take on board and think about and then develop in their own way, you know. And look, none of us have got all the answers, and that's the God's given truth. You know, we haven't got all the answers, but I think as a community we sort of pull strong, and bands are pulling strong as well, and it's working to their benefit and to the benefit of the metal to the masses.
Yeah, absolutely it is, and it does seem to be getting stronger around all the time. I mean, we've seen a lot of uptake on Bloodstock Radio this year with the updates coming in as well, and it's not even been like promoters. We're getting like, you know, local DJs, Chris Pullen down in Brighton, and Sheffield have been, you know, Jake's been sending one in every week. We've had South Wales have been doing it, where there's a Musopedia of Metal down there. And it seems to be that they're sort of getting the idea of it now. The promoters, they're realising that it's not. Yeah. I don't have to do it. If there's someone else that's coming to all the gigs, we'll get them to do it. So you know, Essex, Leicester, Coventry, we've had regular input this year, whereas in the last years I've really had to be sort of dragging it out of them, and sometimes we've only had like one update a week. This year we've had probably at least 4 every week, which is great, you know. It's
because as well they're seeing the benefit of doing that. They're seeing the benefit of, you know, promoting and realising that, you know, it is working for the events, it's working for the bands, it's working for that whole hashtag community thing, because, you know, that is, you know, that's solely, as much as it's about the bands, that is really what Paul was sort of aiming for from the get-go, Paul Gregory.
Yeah.
You know, he was aiming for that pulling of community together. And let's be honest, metalheads are as guilty as anybody else of sort of pulling each other apart and being, you know, whatever. Yeah. But this is the good side of it. And, you know, it's something that is really important. Because I think what I'm trying to say is heavy metal is sort of, it's growing in numbers. Let's just keep it that it's ours, and that it's, you know, it's something that we cherish, and we cherish from the ground up. And I think that's the important thing. If we cherish it from the ground up, then as bands become, you know, more popular and make a day job out of it, then we can support them, you know, further down the line as well.
Yeah, absolutely. So you are off to Glasgow tomorrow then, sir?
Aye, indeed.
And Rob's at Sheffield on Saturday night. So we're off on the road now as well, and I believe you've got your bag of goodies with you again. So tell us a little bit about that and the sort of stuff people can be getting involved with this year.
Well, there's a couple of initiatives. One sort of in relation to anyone that's at the show, they can have a go on my infamous raffle, where you can grab hold of a load of EMP goodies. I mean, I've got T-shirts, I've got drip trays, I've got hats, I've got everything that, you know, EMP can throw at us. We've got a crate or a pack of Hobgoblin beer that they can win. Plus, they can win 2 VIP guest tickets, which is a standard camping ticket, but it gets you into the VIP Serpent's Lair, which, for those that don't know, the Serpent Lair has that hidden stage, that hidden bar, and really rather good toilets as well. So, you know, it's and also the fact is you've got close proximity to all the bands that are doing interviews. So, you know, there's been several occasions where people have looked round and found that they're drinking at the same bar as, like, Johan from a Man of Marth or whatever, and it's the VIP is great fun. So yeah, that's all run on the raffle. But we're also doing this thing as well where it's like a hashtag online initiative, whereby anyone that's at the event, be sure to take sort of selfies of themselves and selfies with friends, and not so much the crotch shots of guitarists. We've all seen a million of those, and we don't want to see any more of those, but like just images of people having a good time, and then stick them on their own profile, whether it be Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, whatever. Make sure the profile is set to public, and be sure to hashtag Metal to the Masses Finals 2019 and hashtag Bloodstock Festival. What happens then is we can scour through, find the best ones, and generally you can just win tickets to this year's event and next year's event, hopefully.
Excellent. That sounds good.
Yeah, good, isn't it? It is good.
It is, and like I say, that's that whole community. I mean, you know, a good way of sort of connecting everything together. And as you say, you can end up with some great shots from that.
Well,
I mean, we did it with the horns thing, obviously, when you had the horns competition as well. Some of the entrants that were sent in for that, it's brilliant and it's great.
It's good fun, and look, at the end of the day, fun is what it's all about, isn't it? Really, it's about sort of, you know, getting out there and having a laugh and sort of supporting. It's all a positive thing, and you know, positivity. Well, it's key, isn't it? You know.
Yeah, absolutely. Cool. Well, have a good trip to Glasgow, and I'll be seeing you at some of these, obviously, over the next few months. So, yeah, if anyone wants to check it out, obviously we've got our Bloodstock Metal to the Masses official Facebook group, which has got a list of all the finals and everything on there. Heats are still going on around the country, so don't just look at the final dates. Have a look at where the heats are happening around you, and make sure you get involved up until then as well. But obviously the finals is where we really want to see everybody getting out there and supporting the bands that is basically going to be representing their region at Bloodstock.
Nice one, mate. Top job.
Cool, excellent. All right, well, cheers, Simon, and I'll see you soon, mate.
Cheers, Petal.
Bloodstock Radio.
Yes, thanks to Mr. Simon Hall from Bloodstock there. And we mentioned a few guest headliners earlier, so I'm going to finish off the show with some of them. Vader are at the Northants Metal to the Masses final on June 29th, and they've got a new EP coming out on May 31st via Nuclear Blast called Thy Messenger, so we'll hear a track from that called Grand Deceiver. Then Talked played Bloodstock in 2017, and they are guests at a North Wales semi-final and the Leicester final on May 25th. So we'll play a track of theirs called Open Wound, and then we'll finish off with the Bloodstock house band Evil Scarecrow and Way to Die. And they are going to be playing at the Wolverhampton final on the 1st of June. Check them all out, and we'll see you there.
I felt operations falls. Your words are wrapped in silk. A thread that slowly suffocates and leads to great delusions. I know you're fake. I know you're snake. I know you're a meth. I know it all is great delusion. You speak in light. You dwell in dark. How dare you to blame? We sin and morality. Your word is skies of treason. Your fall and death. None would do so. Slay them to oblivion. Abominations of the race, but you're in very ends. Nothing
fans, for the fans. Bloodstock Radio.